Padra Chompaya Daba Zobe Sangye Ripa Danja Sudenpa Dewa Shep Jiten Kempa Kebu Dulwe Kalo Gyurwa Lana Mepa Lada Minam Gitunpa Sangye Chumden Nepelgelwa Shakya Tupala Chakselo Chodo Kyapsuchiyo Lama Tunpa Chumdende Deshin Shepadra Chumpaya Dapa Sope Sangye Ripa Danshap Sudenpa Dewa Shepa Jiten Kempa Kebu Dulwe Kalo Gyurwa Lana Mepa Lada Minam Gitunpa Sangye Chumdende Gyalwa Shakya Tupala Chaselo Chodo Kyapsuchiyo Lama Tunpa Chomdende Deshin Shepadra Chompa Yanda Pa Zope Sangye Ripa Dansha Sudenpa Dewa Shepa Jikten Kenpa Kebu Dulwe Gyurwa Lada Mepa Lada Minam Gitunpa Sangye Chumdende Pelgelwa Shakya Tupala Chakselo Chodo Kyapsuchiwo. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time the Bhagavan was dwelling on massive vultures mountain in Rajgir together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara: how should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra: Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty, emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as true since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared: Ayata gate gate para samgate bodhisoha. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised as spoken by the Bhagavan. From the holy supreme realm of Kachara, you who possess powers of clairvoyance and magical emanation, look after practitioners like a mother looks after her children. To the host of Dakanis of the three abodes, I prostrate. By the teachings of the noble, three rare sublime ones possessing the power of truth, may inner and outer hindrances be transformed, may they be dispelled, may they be pacified. May all enemies and negative forces opposed to Dharma be pacified. May the host of 80,000 obstacles be pacified. May be free from harmful conditions to Dharma. May all excellencies be in accord with the Dharma. And may there be auspiciousness and perfect happiness here, right now. Gyewa kyabda dorje changchen bodang owo yerma chipa yonso tenping ada dongi le dusen namoto chesu lama lozan tuwan dorje changchen po kyabje Khandro Kunga Bhuma Rinpoche pelzam po jangane tepa chenpo zungjo sabmo lepa juwe yundu shinkambu aju. Om benza bumi ahu wanchen sergi saji. Om benza bumi ahu chicha koryogi korwe usu rigal porirak shalu papo lo zambuling nu balancho chandra minyen ludalupa ngayabdang ngayabshen Yunnen dalam chodro draminyen dan draminyen gida Rinpoche riwo pasam gishin decheba Mamo pai loto kolo Rinpoche Norbu Rinpoche Sunmo Rinpoche tatu Lampo Rinpoche, Tajo Rinpoche, Mapo Rinpoche, Techempo Ebomba, Gema, Tremwama, Luma, Garama, Metoma, Dupoma, Nanselma, Trichama, Nima, Dawa, Rinpoche, Du, Cholena Pargewe Gelsen, Usulada mi peljot bunsun sopa masa wamepa sanjing yidu om wamepa sanjing yidu om wadida vichen sawa Jepe pelden lama dampa namdan gepar duya yonzo tenpanga Dungi la du senne mote Jesu lama lo santu van doje chanchen po gyabche Khandro Kunga Bhuma Rinpoche Pelzan po shengane tekpa chen po sungchu zapmo lepa juwe yondu shinkam uwargi o tuche rowe dundu shesu so Jene kyanda sodro amagyur namke tadan yampe semchen tamche la tu sewa chenpo gune jingi laptu so sao sa ji pergi jushi Sa
Sanjin Jedang Tsoje Chunam Lai Chanchu Padu Dani Jesu Dagi Chushi Jive Tsunam Ji Drolan Pinji Sanjin Drwar Shu Sanjin Jedang Tsoje Chunam Lai Chanchu Padu Dani Jesu Dagi Chushi Jive Tsunam Jin Rola Pinjir Sanjin Ruware Shu Sanjin Chedang Tsoje Chunam La Chanju Bardo Dani Jazu Dagi Chushi Jive Tsunam Jin Rola Pinjir Sanjin Ruware Shu Kangi tuze nizon we dawa tamje bangwe je tambe june denje kwadam de la chanze lo Toni ninje zondan juwe la chijer senze kwanjin dendeng chanam be mo denze janzo la sowa de so da ju chinjen lo Mananga danyan be simjen tamji Zobe sanjin je kongbang jumbo ji tobe je Tamben shuzong mangde nyamzu lang cho Laso ni samala terin che join ta tiring Gabe kale kabus cha tin Tandini sanjinda chanju sembai ani turba ani zachenbo dinde mane church tapo zachenbo dire
And then, the profound Dharma of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is, of course, very precious.
Oh dinde pedi do ani dinde zachenbo dire nga tsotsogan na pep dinde dinde je nangwanda shukchenbo nda dinde those
And also, I have a feeling that among the audience there are also high realized beings like Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. So I feel very uncomfortable sitting.
Geshe ani konamba je namba zo kiwang zachenbo mambo zidin la ani nge zi go na pe kale kabu those
And then on top of that, there's also people who have a deep knowledge of the Dharma who are here present. So also I feel uncomfortable teaching here in front of them.
pe mi si serbo those ani je namba malaya de la ya me ba chene dushi zene ya nanga la ju tene tingi chebe tsu de ya phugen is
So then I imagine for myself, or have the discriminating factor, that all those holy beings being here present, they actually sitting higher than myself and making offerings to them.
tinga thurgona kharchigona thya de samno course
But if I want to escape, I don't know where to escape to.
ani nga so jecha kare da
장주기생.
oh laso katin che tini tanga so nganda ora zina che namba kashi shigyo jire kashi shigyo jumare de je namju ngoto chaji lokso ndaw tinde rasarwa ani 다 맞아 잠블링 콜라 디게 침상 찍어지 부모 가서 연대 친지대 연대 민주지 부모 베베 부모지 인스다 딩이 ngö전도 인스
So then, from the point of view of introducing myself, as there might be people who already know me, but maybe some people do not. So I'm a lady from Tibet and from a worldly perspective, born in Tibet.
라서 다 저차 잔주기 셈바 장부 저차 인자네 아니 신드네 개바 장부 자침부 딘데레샤니 디토라 마랑 마시나 아니지 셈바 남다게 칸투드 지쇼기
So then the topic of today is Bodhicitta, And that by itself is a very precious topic, as well as to hear about it and contemplate it is very fortunate.
태양 가서 다 춘직된 가르지 제와이나 저 소소 찍고 있는다 몽보냠도 있는다 그런 남바라 탁방하니 아니 샘제하고 저랑이 강 제바데 샘제 탐제 템바다 대와 지보 용야 체들라 아니 자와 지기 공부해야 돼 시라케 좀 보인서래.
So even if you are a non-believer or a believer, from both perspectives, it's important to generate a good mind and a good intention. So that's true for all beings, and then a good intention means to work for the welfare of all sentient beings.
당가서 참바다 제벨로 야지 땅야라 아니 가서 이게 다 지당게 남주 지속이 망주나라 아니 지자니 니레 초알라 지자니 가서 패기 나지지네 드나티소.
So in a similar way, we have to practice like altruism and love and kindness, and we should make that as a part of our life, and with that part of our life, we should move forward.
당가서 자베지 창주 비스는 참바다 제와 셈벌상고 아야데 당신지 그다 가데가 지스서 내가 기차들이면서.
So we all have this kind of potential or this kind of wish of an aspiration towards bodhicitta or love and kindness and compassion. So we all share that same aspiration.
되는 것이 심기 당신 현재 정지 내당지 당 되는 칼에 나저 배려지가 중간이 지수가 심기 그래서 차당 이제 당신이 제일 좋아서 제당 좀 좋아서 칼에 가서 차당을 하고 샤는.
So then we have this potential in our mind and this kind of aspects of these positive states of mind that are with us present already, or kind of almost naturally present. But then we have the afflictions like anger and attachment that will, has the potential to take over.
아주 쌤 상고 라야지 이면함제 소소이 되봐 제 점리 아주 이거 봐라스.
So then just having the mere wish for love and kindness and compassion and bodhicitta, or the prayer by itself, that is not enough, of course.
계속다 그래서 자외기 미지비 찬 시럽 비슈다 땅 지 때선 자첨보라지 아니 상보 그냥 튠진지 아니 상보기 기제인지 예와 체를 듣나 아니면서 상보 튠진이 그래 들어봐이나
So then we should take this as an aspiration and walk in that direction, and then make sure we get the right conditions or corporate conditions, so to say, to develop these potentials of the mind.
아주 잠블링티나 미창으로 주기레나라 말레나라 스니 참아 동만들어지 서와 대화지 서와디 되어지 디기토네 아니 맞어 같이 자롱이 주름나라 아니 로종 전에 나서 수수이 가시 점이 나서 대화들 체더라 대화 용비 체더라 아니지 로종을 주저리 점이 나서 시샤 아니 빈종 같이 얘들아.
So from a worldly perspective, then also we see that we have the various kind of corporate conditions in life to enhance those positive qualities of the mind.
됐습니다. 남 주는 데서 가신지야. 초과료야. 치 공행기 공시 대서 라파지기 토네 가신지대야. 라파지기 토네 아니 대화님대 동행용대. 대점지가 아니 탁주 러다 이치 러다 르기 러다 지나네 아니지 소화지 용들 아니 맞지 있으면라 주르 주주요가 동행 이나 대화이나 대화라이나고 직대몸에 대화 아니지 거리나 수술라 가지고 다지 항상 주주주주주지 네갑지 차대로.
So then if you look from first of all from a worldly perspective, then most people in the world, they follow the sensory perceptions, so to say, or the doors of the senses. And it's basically a coarse aspect of the achievement of happiness through the sensory perceptions. And not only is very coarse, but also is not very stable. It will not be stable. The happiness we gain from sensory perception is not very stable, and the objects of the senses don't really bring a kind of stable form of happiness, but also in the nature of change. It's always changing.
So now, any susu shirap dance catching, and susu miji chani, draw midi, and chasa kala chashi, sakola, ribu, jigla, matsugi, and nangi, kamba, jodi, sakla di, nimazi, shiri, and sakola di hitting na, simjan some jenny, and devan deva, tunge mandeva. This one chichila, ten chichila, rapachila, chichila, and ten days, neon to the imagine Chia, and to be society.
So we also need to combine our positive intentions with wisdom, and that is very important for us as humans. And then when we try to generate positive intentions of the mind, it's important to also use wisdom in analyzing when is attachment, for example, involved when I generate like love and kindness and compassion. So we need a kind of a basis, like the ground or the foundation of a house, so to say, for ourselves to move to more stable forms of happiness to be achieved. And in a similar way, we should look outside and look at all sentient beings, because all sentient beings are exactly the same as us, wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. So then we take ourselves as a basis, and then from that we go out to sentient beings.
So
then our basis or our house, so to say, then we know it's in the nature of impermanence. So one day it will be destroyed, one day we die.
아니 시럽 배슈 당와이나 빼 미시기 아니 semjin yen damanda mihi tenjide 아니 디히 시럽 배슈 당야라 하레바 그게 짜침부지 방두게 님바지요 인장 그것이 시럽에 카제 이니 지 가지고 자지 난 semjin 지지den기 사콜라디 소조 카지스 제부도 내가 숨좀 지나 태우 간지르자 디히팅의 생전 탐지라 랑기 파마 주대 샤다 다 파마라야 돼야 다니시 파마 점지 라 셰지 지야데 맞아 단단한 예비장이 다 예고다 아니 차당 제대야 돼 생전지 춘이래도 데네 링자 산노다나 파마이 쿠자 디히 쿠자 디히 쿠자 아니 디히 가지고 코리우 강다른 영화 이성이 토네는 장애 마고지다 제비미스가네 그래서 아니 파마 문제로 지게네 숨고여래라네 가시데키네 제투기 메도나 랑게 또그담 년자 아니 탄다서 주고 인제네 제 제야저다 제 같은 제비도네 로종 또그 아니 좋아 그다 담이다 친다지기 있어서 내가 이제 자치고 가르쳐요나 대 아마 심전 탐지지 때네 디지 같은 데네 디엔저 임바제다 내가 데니 중대와 유지지 아주 지 대서 하고 송와이나 아주 심리 대서 정르다 자치를 가지 제와이로와.
So then, as we said before, it's very important to join our good intentions like love and kindness with wisdom, otherwise it all remains quite short-sighted. Yeah, so we have to look at the world and we have to look at sentient beings and then have a wish to protect those sentient beings and like to help those sentient beings, because all those beings are actually like our mothers and our fathers, and we should try to generate a close connection with them by contemplating those aspects, and then of course guard our mind that we don't get attached, that attachment is not involved. So with that aspect you need also the aspect of wisdom to be with those good intentions, and then we try to, whatever acts we do with our body, speech and mind, for the benefit of beings, so to say, and then try to think how we could help self and others by the power of study or praising others or helping others in various ways. And if you think in those lines, then using wisdom, then the mind becomes more subtle and your form of good attitudes becomes more profound.
아지 데 마치 몽데 마임바 오늘 전에 아니 랑캉 대반대와 나시 아니 젠semje 심딩이 주 가져서 심진 탐제라 아니 내가 나시 찍어 되기로와 랑 동에 만들어 서로와 카레 여바이나 젠 타가 나지 데 인자네 아니 랑라 네바 제니다 랑라 독자 제니나 랑 집으면 도와 데 송장 가서기 아니 미진다 지기 랑라 아니 베데지 제야다 잠지치니 장와이나 랑 집어도 아니 대인 이나 다 가서기야 봐 심진 탐지라 니링 차당 마셰스라야다 아지 자천부 소년데 줌젠다데 자지 공부예네 제바이나 괜히 심진 탐지라 랑 집어 용어나지 콘도 집어 요 고그레 진로지 제바이나 되는 가서기 패체 차도 라야다 젠심 라야다 ngaso rang la dongye yongya yi chala mambuji sorba mambuji rangi gakdom chiala lela wo shuji chagiro.
So then, as we know we ourselves, we strive for happiness and don't like suffering. So we should see that all others are in exactly the same conditions. And by seeing that and also looking at the dependence that when we are harmed, then we don't like that. So we also try to understand that aspect of it as well, and that's why we generate compassion and love and kindness for others, by understanding that relationship, if something happens to us, how we will react. Then when we get close to those beings, then also, or we generate this kind-heartedness to sentient beings, then it's also important to prevent those who are close to take, that we generate attachment towards them, and those at distance that we generate aversions towards them. So we should use the various reasons based on wisdom that we have kind of an equanimity towards all sentient beings, and that prevents, and we should prevent aspects of jealousy and competition in our life by understanding the points we just talked about, and in particular that all sentient beings want happiness and not want suffering, exactly the same wish as we have. And take that into account, then we should work for the benefit of others.
Deni ngaso ta jidangi sanje semje nani tani jidan yanchi karjuru kunzobji tse jinsarezi yorwa.
So we all have kind of respect, of course, for the Buddhas and also for sentient beings.
Diayang ngaso semje ladu ani karjuburta lo churba yin dewa. Ani ji lo de churba yin ba mase chinji lo ne ani ji ngoi ni su ma do ni dendegi lo yin ba zo mare da chui tani da jana dangji mariba layada rang jinji layada dagji mariba ladu dagji ladu ani ngaso chinangi ngobo kare ina an susugi chadang jinse lo yu de zo changlo yu korangi nangchuda rangi ani ji nangchuda yu korangi nisu tenide ani bemisi hajangi ani dokcho chane ani mungdudo an dendezigi mungba ji rigdela lo dela marikba ladu ji karsoboro chulu yewameba mirigla yewameba susu dunghe mandoro dewan deweji simjin kunla ani ji deso depa yewa che tona ani marikba layadi ngoy nichu matoni ngaso shesha chi zuta chero ngen ji wangbola gyu nangde ji kunzobde ani ngoy nichu korangi rangjin karimba korangi namjuro karimba dela tene nangi simla 아니 가족이 랑진 쌤이 랑진데 가래임바 생기 출도원정 네 가래임바 야보지 공부 예송아이나 뭐 니스디 마토니데라 마리바지 뭐 니시 토니데라 릭바 예시 저거 말해다 예시 나나다 한다 릭바세나 되니 딘지게 신앙 차오게 산점데라 가서 공부지 예와이나 그 시럽 카체바이나 수이나디 킬린 톱사라 아니 왜 니준디 수이나지 다번 제기로 가기로 맞아 주말에 라야다 출발에 라야다 고보당에 라야다 되니 동행이 리기 용서조가 내차 셰당 디무 낙심 내심 록다 차도 주진 상물로 이 칸이 중리 이 머리바만이 중거도 왜 니지 마통 왜 니지 마통이 토네 아니 데버트비 로지 아니 저 탐지네 가지고로 보다 지 진당 능겐다고 자찬 될 때네 아니 머리바세나 왜 니지 마통이 장이 심 치 유유진 가라지 띵어이나 왜 니지 마통이 되라 머리바 내니 친지로 와슬라니양 뭐지송 용도
So then, if we look a bit more deeper into these aspects of words related with our perceptions, yeah, so that the Buddhas and sentient beings, by the kindness of them, and that's why we respect them, and then we can see that sentient beings are disturbed. Sentient beings have many wrong views. And by the power of the wrong view, in particular, the wrong view of apprehension of a self, that's what we call ignorance, right? That people misunderstand reality. And that is then related with our external and internal worlds, that we perceive the reality in an incorrect way, what we call ignorance, in an incorrect and true way, or grasping at a self. And that triggers afflictions like anger and attachment. So that's kind of an aspect we have to look on, what actually is causing all these problems of these afflictions, and then we see that it's all rooted in a sense of aspect of ignorance. Although we all want happiness and don't want suffering, as long as there's ignorance, we cannot accomplish those two aims. So it's important to understand reality. So what is actually the ultimate reality? What is conventional reality? How do things appear? And what is actually its actual nature? And that's also true for our own mind. We should understand the true nature of our mind as well. Because not knowing aspects, and in particular with regards to the reality of the outer and internal worlds, then we have this kind of not knowing of ignorance. And by knowing the reality, we generate a kind of wisdom that understands the inner and our world as it is. So we need to make a distinction between what actually is reality and the things that appear to us, and which aspects that are mistaken, and which aspects are kind of illusory-like, or which aspects have this perception of a mistaken view. And then we see, as long as we have ignorance, then we cannot really comprehend and understand reality as it is. So it's for us important to see the difference between the mistaken views, or the distorted perceptions, and the wisdom understanding the actual reality as it is.
강다 나저기 심데 상부조야라 아니 랑지지 나저라 양 스스로를 미디를 따지르다 미디를 쬐바지르다 지겨라 대승자 저 심지지 아니 따와디 친지로 아니 쬐바디 친지로 심지지 따와디 친지로 아니지 동의 랑지나 대바지 아니 미자비 랑지나 따바지 대라데니 자당 이루어질 에너지 매장의 장시나 정말지 텔레비전 자당 이루어질 안돼 정말로 다음에 가면 다음부터니 자당으로 진대지 에너지 뒤망에 내망에 되니 서로망에 네 코로나 거되니 다 심지 차도
So then, yeah, I went a little bit into emptiness, but yeah, it's important, and we talked about love and kindness and compassion, and that is then also related with two aspects of our view, or the view we have towards the world, so to say, and our behavior. Yeah, and then most people, although they strive for happiness and don't want suffering, often people engage in incorrect forms of views and incorrect forms of behavior. So although they want happiness and don't want suffering, they actually create the causes for suffering and abandon the causes for happiness. And then in a similar way, we see people, they see suffering as happiness, and they see impermanent aspects of reality as permanent, and they see selflessness as having a self. So there are kind of incorrect views of reality many sentient beings have.
대선장 가서 뉴레지 소연은 도와줘당 저지나 가서 샘진 이니승안에 섬는 스타자와이나 안 잠을인데 롱 줘당 저디야 아니 미 작업 미 미리 아니 지여와 아니 데니지 섬다나 미 짐장 안 딩에 자 딩에 니 아니 빼 이해와 뭐지 데니 차단기 로디 숙체를 체를 베레즈나 예만 로데데 아니 개와 장미 들라이나 데니 지금 싹 다고진 시비시비지 데데 녀가서고 데데 미도 단다서서기 미리 약하고서 예와 숙천부지 돈 차단기 로데 숙천부디 냥 대바 되고로 동이 되위 차니 이 중요해 말어 대왕 대당라 된가서 쩌운다고지 자기로 데니 지 상라지서 아니 시럽디 카제 끊나 펜데스 주바이나 끊나 대바 맞지 랑 고양 회대 이제 여러 네 멤버체 아니 이 스스 산점디니 이와 아니 과지 지용도 약간 초과 침부자 아니 초과 딜이 젠지네 잔 도주 니 장주지 차당의 수 홍보이 토네 아니 랑기 토네 예비 탑라 아니 나삭지야라 하장겐 세 통보신한서 끼지라 니 점링 메가서야 된대 이게 자라서네 그래서 지야디 공가서 야고 삼는다나 디 시럽 임바 강지라 시럽 묘몬지 나냐 할리비지 다스스라 저와 동에 아니 베지 가르쳐 버다 어땠도 오늘 동에게 나래야지 다지 레드 사로로 한 제 용수서 봐 맞지바 마대바 그때 화장지 신앙사무지 자 성장 네 상황으로 가서 심지기 출비니 수만 마리과 주진지 되니 랑 진진디 자지모 지신 마리과 이니수 안에 되니 랑 진진 디시 로슈 쳔보지 차용도 딜라데니 한가서 점블링디 신앙사고 시우지 수수즈기 지 가르주고로 다 소소 자가비나다 소소이 낭미나다 지 소소 갸와 가르지 제와이나 충중지 야고지 용야체들라 미신다 디즈당 유진다지도 독자기 아니 족준지야 돼 할리비 탑죠 다 할리비지 에너지 가르쳐 독자 시우지 차기도 리셈제 옌 제도문도 미 남주시 양초 진바지니 미 남주 야제 땅유리 되나라 심진란 산진라야 돼 치야지를 타림보지라 마임바 랑기 심기 랑지 니룩 지마지진 가르지이미 시리 가리임비 디이 쳔바다 님바다 제와 가르지이미 디상마 용수 또르디드나 아니 산진스 록스메도 심발라나메바 님발라나메바 제와라나메바지 심진 꾼지 랑치스 심 타뚝디 딘디지기 자치부지가 스스 저기 또네 단답하더라 가서 자치고래 실라네 잡다 쥐어봐 근데 뿡니 이절대봐 뭐지 얘들이 단다 용이지가 먹어도 네 인자는 딘질라 체파 쉬우지 니치데서 가서 떼서 쳔바이나 하는 소소이 랑조다 랑가 간다지가 로 고민데 그래서 하고 해야 차그러
So then, every day, so to say, we have to think about these aspects of the world and sentient beings, and then prevent ourselves from making strong distinctions. For example, we easily do that with our own family, and we would like to protect our own family for anybody else that likes to harm or says incorrect things about our family. And we do also do that with countries. We really have kind of a lot of feeling for our own country, but maybe not of other countries. So then what happens that we make a distinction between friends and enemies. And those distinctions of friends and enemies come about by the afflictions of attachment to those who are close, who you consider as friends, and aversion or anger or hatred to those you consider as distance or you don't like. That's true for places, that's true for countries, that we make distinctions, and actually, if you really think about it, it's like a joke, because that's an incorrect understanding of reality. We need a wisdom that understands these aspects. If we don't have that wisdom, then we have boundaries, and then we have wars, and then we have aversion to those we dislike, and we have attachments to our own people of our own country. So we see by the power of aversion and attachment in this way, there are wars going on. And the wars, they produce all kind of very dangerous weapons of things going all the way up to mass destruction. So that's kind of an aspect that is all rooted in these afflictions. So we can clearly see that these afflictions are a cause for suffering. And then by the actions of these particular actions based or rooted in these afflictions, we of course create various types of karma, and that's if you look at these kind of aspects, what's happening in the world, then it's very dangerous. And this aspect of karma and afflictions, that those two aspects are then rooted in an aspect of ignorance. And not only ignorance, but also an aspect of the self-cherishing attitude. So we have two aspects there of grasping at a self, and as well as the self-cherishing attitude. So because of those afflictions related with those two attitudes, then we make distinctions between us and them. And that happens not only in our family or those who are close to us, that also happens in the whole world between the different countries. And that's why people actually, for small purposes of getting more property or getting more land, people engage in war. So that's kind of an aspect to see that all the problems in the world and the problems in our lives are created by these afflictions, in particular ignorance, aversion, and attachment. Then we have to look about sentient beings. As we said before, we should have respect for sentient beings and the Buddhas, because we all can achieve Buddhahood, and all sentient beings can achieve Buddhahood. So for that purpose, we should also respect sentient beings and should know that it's possible to achieve Buddhahood, because our ultimate nature of the mind, of sentient beings and those of Buddhas, there's no real distinction. It's just the temporary or advantageous afflictions that makes a difference. So then and all sentient beings, not only us, but all sentient beings can achieve Buddhahood by the correct mind trainings and by realizing the ultimate nature of the mind, so to say. And if you understand this aspect, then automatically you will generate respect for all sentient beings, because all sentient beings have that same potential to develop and become a Buddha themselves. And then your interest will move into the path. And that's kind of why we need this kind of wisdom of understanding what's actually going on.
So, I didn't young to Namju Jivaina, and as a Namjun, the Kajiguru, Lobjongi, Nitu, the Ninji, Suzuki, Torwagi, Nitu, Naga, not to shit up, Ladin, Yureves, Yugurua, Namjun, Lobjongi, shit up, the Nisuzuki, Musina, Lega, Chawa, Karachivaina, so the shit up the door. That shit up Yoga Kajila, Numon and Jade Bigi, shit up Jidan, and shit up Numon and Mandeli shit up the Masolani Yovadi, and it Munjin Tumna, and Sitachim to Zerova. And shit up the Chimba de Kazungi, Suzuki, Chimba Kazu Jachuru, Simdi, shit up the Kazu Kasewa, Tizugi, Chimba de Hakuru, Nimba, Chimba. 가주 심발레바나 디즈기 세와 다 님발라야디 창고 창샤지 돈이 용되어지 남주도 가서 다 시럽 표시 당야라 시럽 요리 디니 남물라 세와 요리 아니 소소 주고 소소 침자 소소 주고 세와 지당 찍세다 창물로 작심 하나기 얘기 남물이 대성장 예 세와 치고래 야나 응알아 디기 남주 야가지 땡기도 대성장 니제와 지고래 슬라야 아주 남주 두가 땡년다 되니 지 가지고 다시 독자라나 마치 제와 지고래세 시기면도 되니 대성장 마주이기 남주지 시럽디나라 시럽 누모지 제데 시럽 대성장 디 남주 땡연저이 제와다 시럽다 이시지 연주이기 디 다자다 denise nyumon dewa inzam ko dasha dewa inzam di jujinsi chebi kabla yang ko la dwe Dile lava mazi gindu chani yang o nyende cha cha da ya da ni susugi zewa chi se yude yang susugi midugi rangjin da dongi rangjin la yang samne na la dili kaju da ji le yung go ro ni changma lo khandis chi go re su lava ina susugi shirabdi ani kyudu chung shirabdi peje dang ma she ani sem zangbo de yang 지 닝지 심볼라야디야 양 퓨드 중위 닝지 심보디 아니 당마시 시랍 퓨드 중과 매송장 닝제디야 세제 인바데 다시 살로와 저르즈와 누가 그거다 이 계속 시당
So whatever we engage in worldly life even, then if it's study or our work or our livelihood, then also there we need, of course, we need a particular form of wisdom or intelligence, so to say. But certain aspects of wisdom or intelligence can be mixed with afflictions, so we need to be sure that our intelligence is without afflictions, otherwise it's not very constructive. And if you look in that way towards the reality and towards your life, then the mind becomes vaster, and then not only vaster, but also you will understand the potential of the mind much better. And then you should analyze those who are close to you, like your family and your friends, so to say that we should prevent attachment from taking over, because that happens very easily. And then the compassion we have, although we might have compassion for our friends and family members, but that is often mixed with attachment. So it should be a kind of compassion free of an affliction. In a similar way, our intelligence should be free of afflictions. When it's mixed with afflictions, then we don't accomplish our aims, so to say, or we will lose actually our good intentions. Because if you have a kind of form of compassion and that is mixed with attachment, then when the situation or the relationship is changing, then aversion can take over and we might lose our compassion, right, for that particular individual. So it's very important to have a wisdom that is there, but also not just a wisdom, also wisdom, or we could say intelligence, that is free of any form of infliction. So then, if you understand these aspects, then we see actually what are the causes for suffering and what is actually the nature of suffering, and then we also see the need to produce a kind of pure form or unstained form of intelligence together with a genuine form of compassion that is not mixed with an affliction like attachment in this case.
Listen. Yang zi jujin mewa remi doa masogi zambulin shen rang na la ina energy kajiburu da jidangi ngaso dungen da zi ina da ji luso la timbi dungen zo ji da semzo la timbi dungen ji da lu da semi faden chiden yin ba kangshi la yang ji zo luso yi dungen mo bu zi yedero semzo yi dungen zo mo bu zi yedero de song da zambulin shen ma che de luso 지 공익이 셰바랑 게 저위 토네 아니지 뭔가 리버디 로종데 치통도 쉬우지 요와체 아니 때나 배야 지인거니 아니 남주르 컨디 중요해 되는지 주제 거랑 지 땡중이 남자들이 마음부지기 아니 가서로다 지 소소기 춘진제 기진세당 춘진주당기 로종 망스 여러 아니 디사모노 세토시 유지샤 아니 디 직보기 아니 마솔라 아니 디지 요소조지 용금면도와 렌데기 주제기 조고 가리 소고미 최종 가리 입카도 가리 요새 다 뉴체시고는 잠블링노나 치지다 뭔가 조고 말에 다들 빼면서 할래버치 통보지되는 마소 튠제이는 잠블링 콜라코라 에너지 간디나나 스스스 같이 제가 치트야지 된데 에너지 최대리 에너야 대지론주 부송서고 노스서고지 가지고로 지 여대로와 아니 이나양 디지 셰유 나라 아니 난 생각을 셰유 되면도와 난 생각을 셰유 되는 나라 아니 셈 정보조 정보소당이 셈 자친보소당이 셈 셈바장보소당이 셈 아니 세바체당 아니 지 시럽해당 Sunju Chedang, and Ningje Jedang, Laksam Jedang, this is Shen, Sunning as a Shen, Namjun the Shen, Nebade, Hajangi, Jilu Zablin Gula Jilu, Hayas. Did Jilu in its Yungani, Tatanda, Zamblin Jiglani, Nisishinazo, Duxani Chena, Jiglani Shena. Aniji, Zamblin Korang, Zachimbuji, Doctrine Yoga similar shitine matubandi nang simgi deji di zo rauzi ngan yinzang chide za chimbore di lini di lu da simni nyamdo anji ko karzoro kunzobdan tendam naji anji simda zuko naji patin suden sini ninge ishiyunde sheba ina angaso kunla pentogazi soso simba achimuchasarwa.
So in a similar way, we have to look at how things relate with each other, right? How cause and effect relate with each other, and how suffering arises and how happiness arises. So that depends on the mind. Yeah? Those aspects are very much related with the mind. When we look then at the the present world, then we see the majority of the people are not that much looking into these things of the mind. They're more thinking about happiness that is being gained to sensory to the object of the senses, and mainly referring to the physical body. And of course, in the present kind of scientific world, we have incredible external conditions of the different things that helps us to have a comfortable life. And science has produced, through physics and other aspects of science, has produced an incredible amount of conditions that helps us to have an easy life, so to say. But that is not enough. We also need to develop the internal world. The external world development by itself will not really produce ultimate happiness. Although in the external world we have incredible conditions. We can take our phone and talk with a person on the other side of the planet, for example. Yeah, there are incredible conditions we have coming from science, of course. We can use that, but that by itself will not establish a kind of sustainable form of happiness or stable form of happiness. And in order to do that aspect, we need the education of the mind. We need to understand mind science. And in order to generate constructive states of mind that produce happiness, like kindness, compassion, practicing patience, effort, and wisdom, and especially intention, for example. So we can see that next to the development of the external world, we need a development of the internal world, the inner world of our mind. And if we don't have this education of the mind, so to say, then although we might develop a lot of things externally, we will not really obtain a form of peace in the world. Because most of the problems, as we just already talked about, of the different problems in the world, they're rooted in mental states, they're rooted in afflictions. So we need a combination in the near future. We need a combination of two. We need, of course, the external developments for our physical world or having a good life, but also we need education of the mind in order to develop our inner world. Yeah, so both of those are important.
So message ina la ina lobjong ma che de shen de ji susu sim chorba dewaji ani shen de tesi nyung charo chi do ani sim gong ri ni chi so me jang ani chi gong gong ri ba jang jang gi nga ne ani ji pembe gi jigden sibe punzo 제가 여래다 야고래 자친보다 레더레데 이나양 딜랑가서 아니지 화장기 르키사다 이치야다 지 잡르바면서 그 말에 당가서 뒤다 남바 근도 디잉가서 서로가 대화 마식 제기도 해스 라나 안디 용금도 너희는 시절에 봐 대성장고 맞아 수고라 빡베 샤리 두시지 풍부된 가서 라완둘라 아니 딜 맞아 레비오 말와 제왕 녀모 특숨기 아니 제왕 마릭바 다리 마릭 라즈도 제바 디히테니 마릭바게 방레시는 가서 라오메바 아니 제바라와 다 대성장에 딜레테니 디스보델라 아니 코라 초아이기 또 그 땀 가레이나 거기도 와 ngar gyur daji ji changmalo ko choje jamji de songjang ko choje jamji yobade gichimbosi zachimbosi deyang ko nebardu gogro Deni ko tsoni, deni ko kangba na yi zubo di kangba na, kangba ma wudu nga zola. Zamlin kangba ma, chilo kangba riri di che. Deni nanglo la, tsang mo mo che. Nga zo tsang me ma wudu. Jakabi tsang chik che. Deni susu nangmi tsang chik che. Deni rang tsang che. Deni nyumo yin tsang chik che. Di kangba de sim dewa ina, yang kangba de tsang ra chung chung zirwa. Dendri ge, papa, samno zi tang song ina. Dendri ge tsang de la, gugo mo mo zi gogi dwa. Gugo yuwa diya, yako che. De la deni, ko yako tsang chik. Tsechen yi chunzi yi nga ni. Ko pechu tangwa tsam zik ma do. Ko kichi la, yubi rangyin da, dungi rangyin yinba di. Ha khona, nga so hajang yi zimba chen. Hajang yi, ji karzo chadang yi lo shuk chenmo di. Nga so, jewa di, nandu karzo za yinba chi. Susu yi, samno tang ji nga na, le la wa sadurwa.
So then we have to understand these aspects of the need for the indication of the education of the mind, because the external development by itself of our external world is not enough. And you can analyze that for yourself. You can see if the external development brings real ultimate happiness or not. We have to examine that aspect, if that's the case or not. And then we can analyze it and come to the conclusion that actually we need also an inner development, the inner development of the mind next to the external development of what we see in science of physics. We also need the internal development from the science of the mind. And if we look into that a little bit deeper, then also we see that actually we're not in control. We're controlled by our afflictions and controlled by karma. So that we are not in control, that's a good insight, because then we understand we need to abandon and we need to eliminate these afflictions. Because we all like good things in life. We like nice clothing, nice food, nice livelihood, yeah, and also we like to achieve happiness. Although the majority of the people in this world are mainly referring to the happiness of the body rather than the more profounder aspects of happiness coming from the mind. So we need also that development, the internal development. And then we can look at various aspects of our lives, that everything we can see as a foundation or as a house. We have our family, we have the world, even states of our mind, like afflictions, you can also see as being a kind of a house in that way. And all these various aspects of the external world and internal world, because they have certain boundaries and they are kind of foundations. And not only they have boundaries and have foundations, but also they're in the nature of change. And that's also important to see that we can change our mind, we can eliminate suffering. Because we see that the afflictions like attachment and aversion creates a lot of suffering, and in order to, when we eliminate those afflictions, then we also eliminate suffering. So we can see there's a possibility of change, and everything is in nature of change and in nature of impermanence.
Guts?
Our mind is a bit strange sometimes, isn't it?
Sheba rakwa tisu di, je sheba, reksha sheba tisu chi la. Dini, nayo sheba dili thari hingza, mi sheba dili thari hingza. An dindi ji sheba digi zangi namdo juzel la tha ju na, takta mati wadi, yi ji sheba di halibi ji tongja chimburi dawasi. Beri, yi sheba koran ji, dachi tongyung di nyumu katsi shuk chenpo thoma kani chungrilani pete tsinzin che kagoda ane changa mebiji nisu ngani ya ina ya tama ane dam jeb toyaji ane ngani yishi sheba diji jikdang lo jacha tongcha ane ji nyumu ina nyumu ji tsawa meba zo toyaji ane tenze tutubji tenze chamo dozi de tongyo na ane ji rang yen laya 아니 지나기 외부 용수 좀 땡제 참고 돈 tarwa topju yoba. Tarwa topru yinba. Da dindrigi yi de, tonyen de ngoma de yi re dowa. Cheza nga zo shirab khatse laya de, rangshi su nga zo re yi laya de zachi mutse. Yang yi de la ina, yang sim laya da yi laya ina da sim laya ina de, ko chara mambu tsu yoba inza, ane rakwa tisu kala nga zo nyumu de komri cheda razi che. ane kewa la da nga zo tanda dirin chewa ina lo janu ni shiba ta chwe za. Digi kosum ye pakcha zangbu tsu yo na, ane ji jenben da katso rugu. Devi pakcha, susu tsorwa devi pakcha de la jenben la na meba. Sim changbu, zangbu, jachimbu la ya digi tsorwa deva ji pakcha re doa. Decha, shedang, timu, laksim, nesim, jen la nepa ji yan ju ji rik tizu di, tsorwa dongyen inza, di mandyo ba rin doa. Dindri yi tsorwa dongyen rik di nga so la, pakcha de shuk chenpo tsikcha. Ani nyingje la ya, laksim la ya da, nginjung chansa yang tabi dawa zoya di la, pakcha shira, maja wache. Den tsorwa dongyen yi, pakcha de to, jawa inza nga so, ani ji decha lap kogyo ma re, shedang lap kogyo ma re, laksim, nesim, lokta chado, shen no la, nga so di peche yoji ma re, nga da shen chong ma re. Ina nga so tsawa lo, di rangshi, pata koro nga shukshu shigido, di kom chan. Kom. Ani ji, kom na lao na nga, ngoy de kanga yo ma yin so yan di, kom ji do wa ina, ko le lao ji, chan roya di di karang re do wa. Te song za nga so, nyumo yi rik da, nga so maji wa, dongay yi rik disu de la, kom ji chen, denze chung do wa. Shirab khatse wa ina, di kom ji khatse dukja da, kanri ji, nyewa la ya ji, dukja zi jesa ji, le zi yo wa ina, zane, dro ma go, nyewa dro ma go wa da, kang dar, le, pete, dongay le, zawa ni mewa chi ya ji, tab yonsu zo go de ya, sim shirab la ya digi, sim chamu digi, nga ni, shirab di nga ni, to toba inza, nga zo, tongya la yang, miki tongya jigo la ta ma jiba sini, yi tong, mishi de tsama, katso ro, sheba rakwa de zo, gonda nye ro du, ishi karapa du ro beranji, zhiba, ishi tongda, da disu shiba disu la yago gomba je da, nga zo, milam no ni, gyuma na ni, temo, de turi, le na zo di, temo zo ro di, jatse na ji, chui rima na ji ji, le ka na, yowa meba la ya da, ji, gonda.
So yeah, the mind is quite amazing in one way and quite difficult to understand in another way. And of course, there are different levels of mind, and it's important to understand the coarser levels of mind and the subtler levels of mind, and conceptual and non-conceptual aspects of the mind, because by the power of more coarser states of mind and conceptualities, we might create a lot of problems for ourselves in our minds. So the mental consciousness is very important. Yeah, the mental consciousness at one point it creates a lot of afflictions, and mental consciousness from another side can help us to eliminate afflictions. So the mental consciousness is extremely important to be understood. Although there might be different divisions, there's coarser types of minds, subtler types of minds, and sometimes if you really go more deep into examining the different levels of mind, you can easily find 100 or 1,000 different kind of distinctions. And in a similar way, we see that afflictions also cause a lot of suffering, and these afflictions cause suffering for us and others, and that's why we make distinction between us and them. But on the other side, the mind, if we use correct wisdom and correct mind training, we can even achieve liberation. Yeah, so in that way, the consciousness, the mental consciousness is very vast and can be very profound. So to understand the mind in its coarser forms and its subtler forms is extremely important. When afflictions arise, the cause is for happiness, then the mind is much coarser. And then when we generate more compassion or more constructive waves of mind, then the mind becomes more subtle. Yeah? So that's kind of aspects of the mind we try to understand. And also we know the various kind of afflictions of the mind, or it's easy for us to have covetousness or harmful intent or ignorance. Yeah, we see that afflictions like aversion and attachment as well, that they're very strong in our minds. When we talk about renunciation, bodhicitta and emptiness, they are very weak. And here I'm just talking about my own mind. I don't know about the mind of you, but we can see by the power of habituation, certain aspects of the afflictions are extremely strong, while the positive states of mind are very weak. And that is just only by the power of habituation. So we should try to habituate ourselves in a strong way or a determined way to habituate ourselves to these kind of principal aspects of the path, like the good qualities of the mind, love and kindness, compassion, wisdom, etc. So by doing so, then we even capable of eliminating negative karma. We're capable of eliminating afflictions. And that's also an amazing aspect of the mind, the potential of the mind, of this mental consciousness. So it's important to analyze our mind well and to see the different levels of coarser and subtler states of mind. And we can see it very easily in our daily life. For example, if you go to bed in the evening and you fall asleep, you will see that the coarser states of mind, of the sensory perceptions, they cease to exist. And then a subtler mind comes, and then the dream comes. And then the dream also is very interesting. It's just like a reflection. It's like a movie that you can dream about all kinds of aspects. Yeah, so it's important to analyze these various aspects, either coarse or more subtle aspects of the mind, in order to understand more about this mental consciousness.
대송장 가서 지 심상보 이직 대소대야 심상보 지고르다 나 심상보 거기 나라 심상보여 젠드레만도 나 심님바여 젠이 디스 깔라하고 인지리 소소단 안디 나 랑지 나란다 직디여 나 야고여 젠디기로 와 직 천진저지 차디기로 와 대송장 나 가시 나서라 심상보여나 나서 동행 간스 용그래 용식이 말어 아니 젠상말로 심 년바지 리기 젠상말로 심상보여나 코푹도 줘고야미도 팍툭가 정시 디켄사와레 제자 맞수 심상보여 제한테 그 대세양 수수수라 고콘도도 맞수 출발해야 돼 심진지 로이 출발해야 돼 제송다 이 셰바데서 심 참모라야 돼 심이 남자데 미시 시랍디비 카세나 아니 베 양지 자체와 난간나지지 소소 무슨 심지나 같이 여자 시럽 대송장 가지고 자와지용나 아니지 글로벌에다 추치에다 잠블리 사가르다 딘디 중지다 딘디 고 시유니지 rem바지 소소소 유튜브ingani 자와지 중요한데 참 가서 심기서죠 심기서죠 바 심기 랑기 가지고 주제듯이 손이 직시 중지 코랑게 양 남주 중지 튠다 만두지 예근 뜬지 라서가다 되는지 입카도 라서가듯이다 심지 지투지 레다 중지 니승안에 양직 뭐부지 시작이 용한다고 저리마도 추 맞아 신한서고 지니까래 가고라 세상 가서라 지 lokli rik tan ra monda de chamalo ngaso gi sambala di se main ba chila pha ji jinro ko gi pha nga na ti ro do ko yen gi ngaso pha na ti ro rang gi sim de rang gi chu ta ko ma je wa chi chuba ma bu so di chube ngwang la pha shon ro de ni ngaso ma ji wa da ma ji wa da ani sim di zang bu da chang bo me ma cha song za di su sim di chu ta ko jap song wa ina ani zamling chang ma ta ko jap so ro 참마 생각을 뒤송아 있나 랑 베베 남도 참마 랑 또서 잽쳐줘 줘서라 랑 셈이 양장 삼도 땅나 랑 남도 진행 가르도 제사 유 가르들이야 양셈 라산노 땅와 있나 기지 당부대 셈리베 님바대 셈리베 기지 주저 랑진들이 아니 시리 랑지 말발라 칼레 가sam단 디zum 메비 셈데 아니지 가져러다 디낭 짐비 아니 유유진 용수도지 거라 낭 잠지 샤 잠지 용도와 셰발라야 될라 입다 카도다 가서 심 가여리슬라나 아니지 류지 지난 가와서 이나 니 동야서 개요 말아봐 나도 단다 시리 받아 나도 계셔시 심 뮤지 마지야 돼 카인세나 군수기 미시 라과다 딘디기 가지고 그러다 제주 지사기 직 죽다 티로르지 매바 인자 아니 다 됐어. 남주스 통고도 제상 셰베 랑실라 남주데 요 말와. 다 심이요 와지 서와데 레라슈레. 무슨 동에 서와도 대화에 서와도 대두기 서와데. 네? 다 sheba korangi dereda de yoda me laade ta tezum me ngani kono dedu inga so sheba yore ta dedu deayang negabi dedu tardugi dedu 아니 딘디지 심 코라기 장지기 밀루 코랑 아니지 야고 지컬 섬 다스나 아니 바 치유이나 쳔바 자치모 지파시 되니 델라테니 장부차 아니 자치 셈데 통송아이나 아니 장부 장샤리도 공의는 통하러 아니 장부지 통송아이나 아니 델라테니 아니 상부 그 상부 내용으로와 나 상부 대양 셈지 그나 아니 가지고로다 가서 마시 진제다 다시 냠지 딘디기로 정수용하니 삼노 확디컬 장고나 가서 빼미시칼에 가고도 얘는 시럽 디기 띵니 시럽 지카세니 삼노 땅나 안 돼서 빼미시 자신부 쉬우래도 빼미시 항상 자신부 아니지 가서 제왕함지 켈레 만에 라야다 레준제 켈레 만에 라야다 멤버 코란 띵중이 안에 코란 똥바 통한테 가라 레준제 로와메바 예스 대와지다 제왕함지 로와메바 예 대와지다 랑랑기 하고 왔다 전설바지 통와지 통인데 세민자 안 디리 이니지 자친부도 통인데 아니 상부 미제 상부 줘야라 내라오지 가인세나 녜베지도 춘중라오 강인다 동행라야디 짐바츠 싱완 잠들에마도 시럽데 표시당나 짐바데 바지 트여송와이나 바지 려자와이나 아니 다디 빼미시 자치무지 니시도와
So yeah, it's very clear that we need to understand the different levels of the mind, and we need to use the mind, because we always say that we kind of, or we like to be a kind-hearted person, and we never say that we like to be a bad person, right? So that's kind of a part of our nature, that we aspire to be a kind person, and sometimes even we say I'm a kind person rather than I'm a bad person. So that's kind of a natural kind of attitudes we all have. Then we, as we said before, we need the wisdom. Is very important in our mind trainings, and the wisdom should also be focused on space-like aspects, that we see the vastness of all sentient beings and seeing their need for happiness and not wanting suffering. That's a very important aspect of our internal training, because the external world, or the science, or the education of science we have at the moment, we are able to produce incredible good conditions for livelihood, incredible conditions of machinery and hospitals, etc. That gives us a very good way of life. But even that, even those aspects within science, those aspects that creates the right conditions for our lives, it also comes from the mind, right? The scientists also, they use their mind to understand how to make a particular object. And how to, obviously computers and things like that, it's all created by beings, human beings with consciousness. So it means that also comes from an education of the mind. But that external, or the education of these external developments is not enough. We need, in order to prevent problems from coming into our lives, in order to have a happier life with more satisfaction, we need to protect the mind. We need to guard the mind, or subdue the mind, so to say. And that we can only do by understanding the different negative thoughts, or the conceptualities related with those negative thoughts, but then also see that even afflictions and negative thoughts, they're momentary. They also change moment by moment. So there's a possibility of change. And the mind, as we know, the mind that apprehends various objects, the mind itself is not a shape or a color. Yeah? The mind itself, consciousness itself, is something completely different from the physical world. Then in the current science, in particular the science of neuroscience, for example, then we cannot really understand consciousness or mind itself. And why is that so? Because the equipment we have at the moment that we use in empirical science is a kind of very coarse aspects we can measure. We can only measure very coarse aspects. And the mind is much more subtler. So that indicates that, with the current science, we cannot really completely comprehend what consciousness is all about. But we can, without doubt, we can understand ourselves, that we all want happiness and do not want suffering. That is kind of an innate wish we all share, and that's not too difficult to examine and not too difficult to come to the conclusion. But then if we like to abandon suffering and accomplish happiness, then also we should know and look at the stages of temporary happiness and ultimate happiness, and look at the vastness of the mind and understand the actual reality of the mind and its objects, as well as try to develop qualities of the mind like love and kindness. Yeah, we have the technique of seeing all sentient beings as your mother, remember the kindness, etc. And then, although not easy to generate these kind of mind trainings, but possible. And because it's possible, and the more you use wisdom in this way, then by the power of habituation, you can change the mind. And that is also true for challenging topics like rebirth or compassion. Also there, we can use wisdom that understands the interdependence and the continuity of consciousness. And then we can understand how to develop these qualities of the mind like love and kindness and wisdom. And by doing so, by using an habituation towards that, then we eventually are capable of eliminating all the negative thoughts or eliminating incorrect forms of perception. Yeah? So we eventually able to eliminate afflictions, and the root of afflictions, ignorance.
So, Khanda shirap matrubalaya da shirap trubalaya de la yang semi ni zin chara mbuzudo Tesonda ngazo namjundu da 하정지 심 네 시럽 네 묘모냠도 슉참고 춘르드 아니지 수수기 침상은 하나이나 람상 죽주죠 맞아 봐셔야지 마틴베지지 아니지 수술라 가지고 다지 지 초와 동행지 용초죠 정말로 아니 로 시럽 인바 가지라 시럽 냠돌라 묘몬진데 슉체용도 아니 샤단나야 묘몬진데 배주체용도 아니지 다샤지야 낙심지야 느심지야 록다지야 차도 삭바도 차도 얘는 셈심이야 아니 지 수술라 강육으로 다지 수술라 이치메이 딘디디 가르쳐 그러잖아 근데 랑이 셈 랑진데 말해 다들 출발들이더라. 랑진다 출발인데 예와치가 있나? 랑진시 졸런줘야지 탑치해도 nimba져야 여러분. 아니 세미나 가리는 지금 임바 제자 제자와 있나? 아니 수수수수 시단대야 나랑 바오이 나랑 랑진이 제나 지금 말아. 이 수수 동행지 아니 진 동행 철바 동행 용야 이쪽 참아 방고에도 대 참아 오 동행 랑진이 슬라이디 산지 좀 된디지 당번에 중고 송용도 되나라 맞아 심이 랑인데 응도 송면도 와 대송장 가서 강유에 되바지 동행데 어쩌는도 와다 디상 뒤슬라 아 동행 어쩌 마용마도 동행 어쩌나 나 동행 강도에 빼치보여 말이 시거세 다 쇼카시 인지러 와 뭐네스나 동행데 가서 어쩌 고고에서래 동행이 다 동행 주르 동행 제반 도시지 동행이라는 시베 분들도 동행이랑 인이 맞지 소소 하고나 근데 동행이 하고나 동행이 처가 동행이 만들어 되니 뒤다 넘버 탐지도 아니 빼미시 동행이 릭다 신한사오디 네 아디 나 가서 말이나 가금에 띵아 고 먹고 시기로 와 대바데 되기로 와제 장고 대화 되발라 수수기 강 착받다 짐바 제서디 남준도 잡다 레서디 동행이 아니 차진지라 나서 셈진지 딜라니 이치에와 인자 니 동행 만드나 동행 용디기로 가르세나 동행 방야지 주디 창교요 말 고 나서 삼는 그런 잠지 제 지보지 레면도 대주 잠기 대바 잠기 삼주 잠기 타지야면도 나서 미지나라 아니 걸어줘야지 거라 동행이 창이 들어와 창망부도 와 맞도 배 침장 자상 다 창기 간도 침장 자상 여와 있잖아 주룩이 창 미리기 창 때니지 다 창기 강대도 와 이 창라 정말로 와 출배 창리도 와 오늘 갈 상마르 마트르리 때서 갈레카고도 하인세나 자신 지기도 하인세나 나다 코존이 지기도 트루바 딘드다 문진 지고서로 금바 자산지이나 네 줄루다 아니 네게 자산다 진이 옌지나 옌바지나 다티 짐바라 뭐네 자신 매비토네 아니 그나 펜디 드나 상말라 펜디 드바이나 아니 드발라 자신디 데스 착바다 짐바 랑줄라 차 인줄라 당연디 딜로데 여 친제라 응아서 타르바줘야 디 깔래 가고지 뭐이니지 랑지기 아니 가조로다 동반이 라바이난다 코나 주 탐지지 니룩 라바이난다 동반이 라야디 오네 심진 탐지 추켈레 나말레나 코디 랑지로 단다랑 동바 미지기 세죠 말아 코나 동동하러 마수기 유유진 용수도바디 랑지 동바메나 아니 가서 가르주고 그러지 랑지 딱바이나 템버트루바다 랑기 템버트루바나 이 딱바지 여와이나 때는 각줍 시시고 말아 안 가서 미지 딱바 미지 여와이나 디 아니 로 짜차 몸비 미 디레슬라니 아니 미지 떠야면도 코디 미다위 랑지 코라이 춘이디 랑진디 춘이 인장 동바 인장 춘이 인장 아니 고 춘이 안에 최진 나초바지 덴지지 안에 샤링고 덴제 코랑 아니 준제지 덴제지 여들이 아니지 가지고 덴중이 덴제지 여들이 데니 중시지 덴제지 여들 와고 코랑 나초바지 샤들이 디 참마로 랑진 동바디 친한테 뺏기지 뭐 인사리 차당기 짜와데 메메시 린당 침보르지 차로서라 랑신 최탐지 랑신 템버주바 메바 아 따이나 최탐지 낭바시 세기도아 최탐지네 동바리 세기도아 아니 지게 맨도 그 동바레도 아저스람나 따페사도 디 동바시 영 최다 인드레도 어디 가서 바로 인다 반난 동바서서 킬레지로 동바 통화이나 준제 통화 타주 아니 타르바 통화 타주 아니 똑소 용수 저거 상해 똑소데 만져봐 안 찍지가 뺑을 니스 이 쥐치 좀 가르치나 코랑 덴지 듀르비 쥐데 빼데 만져봐 용기도 와 아니지 쥐 개와라 아니지 처와대와 아니 쥐동이 이 처와라 디 미게비 디지 릭데라 처와동이 여야디 배드 거라 남자들 돈이 인산디 샤용 거라 돈이 민산디 컨시 샤 그래 맞아 돈이 인상 가서 게로리 가서 시로리 가서 이 주하나 초바지 용되고리 끼찌 열랑지 레데고리 디 가르세나 가서 랑신디 돈이 레더라 돈이라 따나 시기라도 디 시고야미도 그 템바 돈이라 디기 띵니 야고산는 따나 디는 가서 가장이 차당로 째야 돼 빼데 소소 만들어 지기로 디니 돈이 니즈가네 데니 년중조에 대해서 아주 쉬워지 제사로 와가지고 바인스나 타르바 톱주 동네리 아니 빼데 간데 데네 숭데 데네 빼데 제와네 체럽 뒤도 남아 꾼도 대왕 바식 도야지 한가지로서도 디 할레바 동네리 제룽지 타르바라야지 도 빼데 그랑 심이 장인디 동네 장인레면도 제상 대 인자네 타르바 톰도지 로제야다 타르바 톱주여야지 수수를 니시 장야지 자친부지로서도 와 제상 동반이 통한데 디가네 시럽 표주에 땅니 쥐 탐지 니루칼 땡 봐야 돼 메시 신도 개체 보이서 내내 정도에 잔주기 셈 나야 되라니 배 주제 나서비지 아이 니지 가네네 제가 이제 자친부디 용야데 거랑 너취 내가 있는 년중로도 파카베나 아니 잠니지 잔주기 셈라야디 중대 니스가는다 뭐뭐지 차되게서와 멍트스콘다
So yeah, we need to understand the different types of wisdom, yeah, and that related with the coarser and subtle states of mind. And then we will move in a particular direction, because most of the time we have afflictions in our mind, and with those afflictions we make a distinction between us and them, and we have a short-sighted state of mind. We only think about our family, and then there's problems in the family, and then we lose our patience, for example. So there's a constant habituation of creating the causes for suffering. Yeah, we have a strong habituation to harmful intents or covetousness or ignorance or jealousy, for example, and that are the cause for suffering. So we should try to abandon those causes of suffering or abandon those types of afflictions. And that is possible because we can see that those afflictions are not an innate part of our mind. They're not a part of the true nature of our mind. They are mistaken forms of consciousness, as we say. And that are already two reasons why we can eliminate, using our mental consciousness, using wisdom, that we can eliminate these types of afflictions. And we need to do that if we want to eliminate suffering, because we have to eliminate the cause for suffering. And then not only for yourself, but then also for others. Yeah? So we try to strive to eliminate the cause of suffering for self and others, to eliminate those causes for suffering. And that we can also see that these causes of suffering are not innate parts of the mind, right? These afflictions are not a part of the mind's nature, so to say. So that proves that we can separate ourselves from these adventitious afflictions. And we all need happiness and don't want suffering. That's very clear. Yeah? But most people in the world, although they want happiness and don't want suffering, they don't really know how to create the causes for happiness and how to eliminate the causes for suffering. Yeah, because many beings in the world, they just constantly create these causes for suffering themselves. So we need to change that. Yeah, then we have to understand the different types of suffering. Yeah, we have the suffering, the suffering of change, and the all-pervasive compounded form of suffering. And it's also important to understand those three types of suffering. And with that understanding, be capable of eliminating those types of suffering. Because often we are overpowered by or controlled by afflictions like attachment and aversion. And we don't want them. But the problem is that most people don't want suffering, but they don't know the method. Yeah, people lacking the methods to eliminate these kind of causes for suffering, to eliminate these afflictions. So the wish itself of wanting happiness and not wanting suffering, the wish itself is not enough. We need to use wisdom in analyzing these aspects of the mind and then eliminating these afflictions. And as we talked about before, we have different boundaries of different houses. We have our own boundary of our own family or our own kind of country, or in the monastic systems, we also have monasteries and nunneries in the different traditions. And there's a danger of saying that this is our view, or this is our monastery, so you make a distinction between us and them. And then you cannot really benefit yourself, you cannot really benefit others. So it's very important to eliminate these afflictions, because by the power of attachment, we have a strong inclination to protect our friends, so to say, and everything that is harmful towards our boundary or our home or our family, then we generate aversion towards those who harm. So that is not really very constructive. So we have to eliminate those afflictions. So why and how do we do that? By understanding emptiness. Emptiness is a very important aspect of the teachings, the ultimate nature of reality. And if you believe in emptiness or not, if you believe in ultimate reality or not, that is not really of much of a difference, because that ultimate reality remains the same, if you believe in it or not. And we can look at that all things appear to be established truly. Yeah, things appear in a permanent way. But if you really analyze, you can actually see that things lacking this self of true existence. Things are in the nature of change. And there's, by the power of understanding dependent origination, we will understand emptiness. And by the power of dependent origination, we also see that things are in the nature of dependence. For example, we see things are in the nature of cause and effect dependence, right? And we have the dependence on parts and a collection of parts, and we see the different types of dependence among the different elements, so to say. So that dependence that we see is only possible if things do not exist in and by themselves. Yeah? Dependence is only possible if things lack true existence. And this lacking true existence, that's exactly what we call emptiness. So if you contemplate these aspects and then you look at the root of these afflictions, and you can eliminate these roots of afflictions with the understanding of emptiness, then you will generate a kind of faith of belief in the possibility of the achievement of liberation. Yeah? So by understanding these aspects with wisdom, we see that we can accomplish liberation ourselves. And it's important to understand emptiness well, because there's a lot of misunderstandings regarding emptiness. You, for example, say the space between you and me, that is emptiness. Yeah, then there's a danger of completely misunderstanding it, and there's even a danger of falling into the view of nihilism. Yeah, so it's very important to get a correct understanding. And that correct understanding of emptiness comes by the power of dependent origination. Yeah, the law of interdependence is very important to be understood well. If you understand this law of dependent origination well, then also you will understand karma. You will also understand how negative types of karma produce suffering and how positive states of karma produces happiness. Yeah, so that's kind of a dependence in our continuity of consciousness we call karma. So that dependence is to be understood. If that dependence is understood well, then also we see that there is a dependence of impermanence. Things are in the nature of momentary change. And what happens with these afflictions, like attachment and aversion, they basically grasp at things in an inherent way or a true way, that we grasp at objects or people to exist in and by themselves. And if you analyze these aspects, nothing exists in and by itself. Yeah? So if you understand this aspect of emptiness correctly, then you will eliminate the establishment of true existence or grasping at a self, and then you will be able to eliminate attachment and aversion. So it's very important to use the wisdom understanding these things, and then if you look at these aspects, then you will generate a real genuine form of renunciation. If you really understand the three types of suffering, and you understand how the suffering is caused by these afflictions, and you understand how you can eliminate these afflictions by eliminating ignorance, then your generation of renunciation, of wishing to be free of the suffering of samsara, becomes very genuine and very profound. So we need a separation of the mind, we need a separation of suffering, and we can see that suffering and the causes of suffering are not an innate part of the mind. They're not a part of the mind's ultimate nature, so to say. And that is also a reason why we can see that it is possible to eliminate these temporary or adventitious afflictions and eventually achieve the state of liberation. So yeah, we need this wisdom analyzing these aspects, as we just talked about, and then we will eventually be able to achieve liberation. And then before liberation is achieved, then using these aspects of wisdom, we were capable of generating positive states of mind as well, yeah, on our paths, like love and kindness, compassion, and then eventually bodhicitta.
취치 마시 계셔 많이 봐. 시럽 때서 배주되는 것서 차당이 로디 고뇽 지하당 간다 매봐서야라 지 유보로야당 내가서 강인티디 아니지 초심바 증조자의 제월로야 계시면도 셈기네 주 인자 랑 가와 레바이나 강인데 와 인발 레베 인발아 대성자 아주 이 강이 티사이 차당기 로인 진당이 니즈가네 아니지 nga 라야지 간다질라 문지치도 아니 네 라야지 수수기 아니지 내가 있는다 빼샤 있는다 강바 있는다 아니지 수수기 대비기 대응 가르치 여와 있나 디지 랑기 듀나 삼노지 땅 랑아 삼노지 땅나 nga 라야디 샤리두시 퐁고디 파젤소나 가서 던진 참이기 니승알아 식로야로 nga 전 짜친구 진데인데 nga서 로차이 니질라 쭉트로비네리 nga서 참보체니 가와체니 제와체니 참아기 쭉로기라 게몬네 말에 이나양가서 남준도 딜라 차당 로단로디 할리베지 직 딱돈라오지 빼 슈지 진데로 대성단 딜라 탑니 저거 말이야 나지 그 자원이데 하고 그러더와 그래지는 류대 정신 샤차 아니지 ruko dinde du chara yingani shikdoju yobadida judrowi nisu dia ha de ni nisu ngani nu suzuki yang samno tongdan zero de nangji yugi suzuki kangba zikbo re lawa ina da chik zachimbo kari ziwa ina sa do chen rimo zaka do chini ko ji jijanjo zamziro di dinde ze ha hona ani hajangi 가진지 로 랑기 착고나지 유딜을 주비요 말아. 제장 랑기 착고나지 류디야 랑기 착고나지 주민도라 유 치로 유디야 랑기 착고나지 유디디 내면도와. 내가 랑기 착고라 덴바요 봐 자지 보여 디 이즈미니 톱고야 라고야 되니 빼지 지 착고 쉬우지 난데로 대성자 니랑 많이 봐 시럽지기 선은 당와이나 고 지지되이나 zambalin korang dute yerang jungji ni tsungani du chara chini zigi riri chare di ngane ibi kato di tingla drama zik chadra ko yang pa yero de garang re ko chuni ngala pa jigdu ro juje na tsu ngani chungwari juje na tsu nan jigdu re chuni ding de na ji sim de yang karse di le de yang ko juje na tsu nan ya ni ga ze ya chal an dini yani 사야지 차진지 직산이야 집이 차진지가 끼치 가서 아니 시 뒤라 로드와 시라야 돼 다디니 마 뒤처라 매바차도 디 낭수디 시나야 보도 디 낭수디 시비토네 아랑이 차당이 로데 마바바 정보 매바 덴바 매바 지리도 양초 디다 총빙 안에 류디 자침보 임바 에너지 류 텔레테네 심디 남주디 미 남주디 빼 미시 하잔자 좀 임바데 통고도 제가 르버지고 저기 가르치고로 가서 지 자침보 진송아이나 가서 자침보 인체 짐장 잡지즈 부구 잡지즈 떡을 잡지즈나 튼로다 치카르 튼로 상황이 디소시기도 부구 소시기도 부구 소소이 부구라 제와시 시기도 아니 지 떡을 지시기도 아니 시기도 나를 생각서 디 찍어서나 지금도 미 남주디 표시당 토마서 제상가서 미 남주 디기 띵네 표시당이 야 되니 뭐네 전에 주 탐지 랑시 마저바 선당 뭐이니지 니룩에서 선당 차당디 매바치 되니 랑기 차당 유제사지 시베 분소딜라 아니 거라 님보 매바 제라니 유 맞아바치 아니 디 참말로 수고딜라 거기로 와 민장 따유 잠지 디 가서 셈제즈여리 민장 따유 잠지 아니 가지고 그러다 랑다 사다 랑이 네갑지 마부지 여들어 빵랑 마부지 자주 마부지 내가 때니 참을 그거리 디 거라 가져러다 젬바 디차 옌 아티 인진바데 매바시 아니 셈제 탐지라 펜도 여바지 아니지 가져고 그거 여베 니 중간에 티 론주야다 그거 여베 돈이 주마다 지간에 낭술 대시빙하니 뉴심다 배주지 치토바이나 빼미시 자치고 용도 내니 리디 가르주고로다지 양야고 저삼는 땅와이나 아니 세미 랑신디 칼레라 세미는 랑신 니루 아니 중화 사도 추 라야지 마타와 뜻이 세미 니루 자치고 저 동용리되나 대상말로와 양 탁바자시 뭐지가라 삼다야들이 딘지지 할리바민데 아무 데니 지가서 이담제 라마리 군조레 산제레 찬세리라네 디니 시시 원자지다 마당가서 한다 곰데서 제데서 디지고 파리 주 세르 다 티주다 한다 제여와 디 상말로 자침보기 나서디 최소 당사다 딘지 자침보지로와 디 상말로 남식지나 마소지 세미 랑지 어서와 디 니루 디 응을 용수도와 춥되어지도 자침보지 딘디 니룩 디 쳔바 여데와 님바 여데와 제와 여데 딘디 징 조사 여진돌 디니 류딘 딜리데니 양 류코랑 자치모 아니 지 류디야 자치모 주주와 항더 엄마니 베베 우레샤
So yeah, we need these aspects of wisdom that is we talked about already quite in depth. And then when we understand the reality better, then we will able to eliminate these afflictions like attachment and aversion. And that is true for our, and then it's not that we exchange attachment and aversion or something like that. It's the transformation of the mind. That's what's happening. And why can we transform the mind? Why can we eliminate attachment and aversion? Because they are rooted in a concept of I and mine. Yeah, we grasp to an I, we grasp to a mine, we grasp to I this, I that. And in a similar way, we grasp to my house, my work, my family. So we grasp at a particular reality in a very solid and inherent, true way. And our aggregates, yeah, our body and our mind, for example, if you analyze, you see they do not exist in that concrete way. Yeah, our body and mind are in the nature of momentary change, for example. And then by understanding this aspect of change or momentary aspect of reality, then we can see that states of mind also are in that same nature. Yeah, like we have that the aspects of constructive forms of mind, like love and kindness, being in the nature of cause and effect relationships or impermanence, as well as aversion and attachment. If you look a little bit closer to how to understand this reality better, then we could just look at the inner world and the outer world, for example, and look at, for example, the body, the different bones, the flesh, the different parts of the body, and the different vessels and organs in the body. And then you see there is independence there. It does not exist in and by itself. In a similar way, if you look at external objects, yeah, if it's your house, for example, then the house might appear in a very solid, independent way. But if you analyze, it's made out of bricks, cement, and there's windows and floors. So it's made out of many parts, and those parts depending on each other. So by understanding these aspects, for example, of your body and external objects, then you get a sense of what actually is the reality. And you get a sense that things do not exist that solid out there as we think they do. And the afflictions like attachment and aversion, they exactly rooted in seeing things very solid. They're rooted in seeing objects, inner and outer objects, in a very solid way. So then, if you look for your body, for example, or outer objects, and you look how the way they appear in a very independent way, existing by themselves, or existing truly or inherently, then if you really look, you cannot really find that aspect in your body, you cannot really find that aspect in external objects. So things look very stable, but they are not that stable as they appear. And that is also true for many aspects of reality. If you look in the quantum world of subatomic particles, if you look in colors and shapes, we see the same kind of nature, that things are not existing from their own side, that things existing in the nature of dependence. And that's an impermanent reality, and by understanding that our body also momentary integrates and momentary changes, and by seeing those aspects, then using wisdom, then we also see that these afflictions like attachment and aversion, they just are misunderstanding reality. They just grasp at a reality that is not really there. Yeah? So that's kind of how we can use wisdom to eliminate or initially reduce afflictions like attachment and aversion, and then eventually eliminate them. So we should see the body and our family, for example, and if we use these techniques well, and we see the real reality of our body and our family and things around us, then we can develop and we can reduce these kind of afflictions. If we don't use this kind of wisdom and we just have a nice life and have a good job and take care of our family, take care of our children, then we're not much different from animals, because animals can do the same thing. Animals, they can also take care of their children. But we have to go a step further and use our human intelligence to develop. And that human intelligence to be developed, we use in order to see that things do not exist inherently. And by seeing so, or understanding that ultimate nature of reality, we will reduce these afflictions like attachment and aversion. And of course, we need a body. It's not that you have to give up your body if you see the different parts of your body. That's not the meaning behind here, but behind these points. But to see that if you look for this inherent body, you cannot find. You only come to the conclusion that the body is merely imputed by the mind. And that's the same is true for the objects around us. And although they appear in a very concrete, inherent way, but actually that's an illusion. That is actually the illusion aspect. And if you look from that perspective, then things become very precious. Then your body and the things around you become very precious, if you have that kind of understanding. And if you also then understand the ultimate nature of the mind that can completely comprehend reality as it is, that is also very precious, isn't it? If you really can generate a mind like that. So we have to understand the mind, and we have to understand how things appear to us. For example, at home, you might have a shrine or an altar, and although it appears in a very solid way, but actually it's all in the same nature of the clear light mind. So we have to understand these aspects with wisdom, and then things in life become very precious. If you don't really engage in this kind of analytical approaches of wisdom, then your life will just be wasted, like just reciting Om Mani Padme Hum without anything knowing about the meaning of it.
라서 드니 시라피도 중앙에 되네 아니 찬주쌤 sabazang khare chege menga so ani chiro rolling chego kadinche.
So that's very needed to generate bodhicitta, but not just bodhicitta, but try to join bodhicitta with wisdom.
Chanju semjo